Thank you. MacGill agus Joe asachtan curahostam. Tachta dinigus agus guniusla fáilte gachtina. Thank you for the welcome here in Glenties, inside and outside. I like the theme of your summer stool here, Ireland at the Crossroads. Actually, I missed not being here last year, Joe. It's kind of a thing that gets into you. You have to go to Glenties.
I know you should have come.
It wasn't that, or other reasons. Anyway, I just want to say that the theme is very apt because this country, Ireland, is at a crossroads. Now, across many cultures, including our own, the crossroads is a very particular locus or place. The crossroads is where we met, sometimes where we danced, sometimes where we waited, and sometimes where we partied. A no man's land, a boundary, a burial ground, a place of sacrifice, or execution, or ritual, or magic, or as Oedipus' Fate said, where the three roads meet. So no matter how haphazard or deliberate our arrival, once at a crossroads, we are compelled to decide. This happens in everybody's life every day. You have to make a decision. In times ahead, we can retrace our steps, but we can never undo the initial decision of which road we decide to travel. It was the Trivia herself who protected the crossroads in the world of ancient Rome. Without dishonouring her or her name, let me assure you, there is nothing trivial in its everyday connotation about the decision that our country and its people will make and the road that they decide to travel at the crossroads it faces in 2016. Because politics is always about people. Government is about making decisions in the best interests of those people. And elections are about choices. And the people will have a choice. So which road will they choose? Will they choose the road to strengthened economic recovery, which is already mapped out, which is cleared, and which is tested? Or will they decide to take another road? A road that's possibly mined, and certainly unmapped, and certainly untested. One that will ignore the sacrifices that they have made, that gambles the recovery, and that squanders the painstakingly gained security. So will it be hello again to the old way of boom and bust, to the forced emigration of our children, to the political and the societal slash and burn, to the talented generations being siloed into the welfare system, to the old political peep show with nothing to see but the impoverishment of its customers? Or will it be a political freak show, a government free for all, where it's none for all and all for none? Or will it be stability, jobs, caution, a plan that's tested and a plan that's proven, a plan that brings with it incremental prosperity and the opportunity to look after those disadvantaged and vulnerable, a plan that builds step by step on the tangible developments that people can see, on the quantifiable improvements that at long last are starting to take hold across our country. So at the crossroads, this is the choice the people face, and they must make their decision. And I hope that for their own sake, and for the sake of their children, that they will choose stability, that they will choose to build on success, that they will choose a government that appreciates and cherishes the sacrifices that they have made, because you can never underestimate the scale of the trauma the people have suffered during what was an unprecedented economic catastrophe. As I said on my first day, when I was honoured to become Taoiseach, it damaged us not alone economically and psychologically, but it damaged our psyche, damaged our soul, it damaged our spirit. And for the people, it wasn't just a financial phenomenon or a national or a global headline. For the people, you see, it was a series of years, a portion of their lives, and crucially, a significant proportion of their children's lives, lived sometimes in great difficulty, years that are gone, years that they will never get back. So when I say never again, when I say with this government, we are never going back to those days of boom and bust and spend it when we have it. You've pushed this economy up a steep slope. We are not in a position of absolute security. We're in a fragile place. But what we've done are to put the chocks behind the economy that it won't roll back. And I said to recognise what the country has been through and to do everything that I can in my power to make sure that as an economy, but not just as an economy, as a society for people, we never have to go through that again. So, yes, jobs are being created. People can see this. Yes, investment is being attracted. People know this. Had in Donegal this week. Yes, we're hell-bent on building a thriving and a healthy economy leading to a healthy and thriving society. No, we're not going back to the days of boom and bust where you were beggared and betrayed. So be it through property, or political pride, or popularity, or anything else, because in the so-called government-backed Ponzi scheme, it was the people who paid. The tsunami of public spending, based on unsustainable taxes, left them drowning in debt. And in the bailout that ensued, their dignity and their economic sovereignty were sold. There was no sudden financial death. It took a decade of the bad and worse economic habits of the Fianna Fáil party to bring this country to its knees and the Troika to our door. Because when it happened, and the Taoiseach of the day and the Minister for Finance of the day gave their press conference and exited right off that stage and were replaced by the Troika, it was a bloodless coup. They had arrived on our doors when it need never have happened. They set up the closed system of the social partnership, which was a Byzantine little business with big consequences. Closed doors, chosen few, accountability exiled. In contrast, what we have now is an open discussion, a public discussion, where transparency and opportunity and accountability follow the national discourse about where people would like to see our country headed, about where people would like to see Ireland in 5 years or 10 years, and what their views are about what should be in the October budget as we prepare for 2016. You know that the new economic spring statement process contains a 5-year plan for the public finances, not just for 2016, but right out through to 2020. And the National Economic Dialogue, which took place last week in Dublin Castle, saw people have their say in open forum, in open public opportunity, on how the government should manage the national finances. And government have been very willing to participate openly in that discourse. And for our part, we are charged with making decisions, making them in a responsible fashion, in an accountable fashion, and always in the best interests of the country. And that's why we're never going back to the when we have it, we spend it sort of philosophy that got us into serious difficulties. Because unlike other administrations, we will not make reckless commitments with the public purse. We are not going to put our country in hock. I heard from this stage during this week all of the billions that can suddenly flow to the tap or through the tap of populism, Reality is different, and we do not want to see happen what happened in a country not too far from here. Because our plan caps the annual spending growth below the underlying growth rate of the economy. If that rule had been applied during the period of 2000 to 2007, the unsustainable growth in public spending would have been cut by 50%. It could have saved, or helped to save, the public finances. It could have saved our people, our families, our businesses from the trauma of what happened, from which they are only now gradually starting to recover. Now, that recovery is measurable, it's palpable, you know it, you can feel it. Government borrowing has plummeted. Interest rates on Ireland's debt are at all-time lows. And that recovery is dependent upon common sense and caution about how we treat the steps ahead, which road we take. The recovery is dependent on a government plan that is already functioning and tested, because you set out the steps piece by piece so that people can see for themselves. Because while it's true that we are recovering, we are not recovered, if you know what I mean. Because the recent progress that we've made cannot be taken for granted. And that's why you will not see the government producing endless lists that cannot be met. We've set out the parameters of where we're going to be, between 1.2 and 1.5 billion, split 50-50 between spending and tax, and ministers and government will make their decisions within those parameters. Even now, our deficit and debt remain too high and must, if we are to prosper, be brought down further. You'll realise 4.5 years ago we were borrowing 22 billion to run the services of the country. That's down to less than 5 and will be eliminated by the end of 2017-2018, which means that you won't have that burden on our backs as a people. So I'm confident that steady economic growth supported by pro-enterprise policies, thank you, Joe, will eliminate the remaining deficit and reduce government debt below average European levels. You heard Minister Noonan comment on this yesterday. We're fast approaching the European norm, which is an incredible journey that our people have brought our country on in a relatively short time. So we confirmed that the parameters will be between 1.2 and 1.5. They'll be divided out evenly and sustainably between tax cuts and improved services. Despite the stronger than expected performance of the public finances since the spring economic statement, we are not going to lose our political heads and we will continue to exercise fiscal caution and restraint. Because if we go on as we have been, if we stick to the plan, if we're consistent with the expenditure rules that we've signed up to, we should see significant reductions in our borrowing levels next year. And we do all of this because we believe that never again must the state of our public finances either paralyse or terrorise the people of our country. Now, that consistency in our approach to the public finances is equally critical when it comes to creating jobs that will bring our children home. I was glad to see the announcement for Donegal this week. I hope that that expands into more and more areas. That's why it's not events, but jobs that keep us up at night. See, creating jobs in every sector, in every part of Ireland, is the number one priority for the government. Because it's not just statistics. These are men and women. They're young men and young women who can then have an opportunity, a career, an ambition, a dream, to live their lives, follow the adventure, and follow their own paths. That's what jobs mean to me. And I've said whether it's 1, 10, 100 or 1,000, we're interested in opening the doors that can make these things happen. And I believe that we can replace all of the jobs that were lost during that crisis by 2018. So it's an ambitious programme, genuinely. But we've already shown that these things are achievable. And there's nothing can stop us in this country if we only apply ourselves with a single-mindedness to achieving our objectives. Look at what you have done in the last 4.5 years. There are no shortcuts to having sustainable or full employment. Now, the previous government, who want to be the next government, talked about full employment. But the construction that they relied on was itself an economic construct. They believed that the entire country could be run on the taxes coming through from the property sector. And that was a construct that collapsed, leaving hundreds of thousands of people without an income, without a job, or without any hope. Usually young men, and often not so young men, holding not their new son or daughter or their grandchildren's hand when they held instead a boarding pass or a ferry ticket for Australia, for the US, or for the UK, or wherever. And for their sake, and for our country's sake, I don't want to see it happen again. Meet them any time I go away. And when they look back at Ireland and say, I know things are moving, is it time to go home? Is it time to go back? Talking to a major construction firm doing one of their roads the other day, and they're bringing back, I think it's about 40 civil engineers from New Caledonia, the far side of Australia, if you get what I mean, even though it's a sphere, as you know yourself. So we produced an action plan for jobs nationally to kind of motivate or pressurise people to do the things that would open the doors for business. We targeted particular sectors and specific actions. That was monitored by my own department of the Taoiseach. You called in the ministers every month. What have you done about your sector? What's happening over here? So that you could plot the progress being made. For instance, in respect of the hospitality sector, people said this is debilitating. So you shocked the system, if you like, by being able to say to the Troika, we've got a different view here. We can reduce VAT from 13.5 to 9, but you make it up on the other side. But its impact was that it stabilised the industry and allowed 35,000 new jobs to be created. Now we're looking at the best year ever for Irish hospitality. And we added to that the fact that we abolished the travel tax and many more airlines now fly in. And one airline in particular, Ryanair, said we'll bring in an extra 100,000 or an extra million passengers if you do that. And that's what happened. Exports in the agri sector are now at record levels. I had a meeting with Premier Lee down in a dairy farm just outside Headford, the leader of 1.3 billion people, astounded at the quality and the integrity and the credibility of what we produce from basic grass and through the milk products and all of that are so important. Yesterday I was down in ABP, down in Care, 600 workers there. They generate about 200 million for the local economy every year. So over 5 years, it's $1 billion spend in that locality. But the quality of what's being produced now, using very high-grade technology, using the best of genomics and sophisticated ways of dealing with a basic product, it's quite incredible. For high-end market, for middle market, for all of these things that are available worldwide. And we're only starting on a new journey there. And that's why it was very heartening that we were able to open the American market, the Japanese market, and the Chinese market for Irish beef, which is new opportunity for beef, for the beef sector here, no more than for the dairy sector. So we've also had a situation now where actually looking at the possibility of a new cable coming across the Atlantic, first time ever into Ireland, with the opportunity for latency for trading banks, that means a split-second connection. But also when you consider that Apple are spending 800 million in Athenry. In the White House, the man said to me, instead of the fields of Athenry, it's going to be the fields of Appleby from now on. And others like Yahoo and Vodafone and these major companies are really interested in Ireland, with its young people being a global location for data content storage facilities and all that flows from that and the services. And that's why Primerica, when they made their announcement here, expressed a massive vote of confidence in Donegal, but also in the talent and the reliability of the workforce here. And when I talk to people in America or wherever about investment into Ireland, and we speak of the of the 4 T's, as I call them, the corporation tax of 12.5%, which stays, the track record of Irish workers, the technological capability that we have, but most importantly of all, they will say this, it's the quality of the talent pool coming through. Its creativity, its ability to meet the new frontiers, to breach those frontiers, however high that bar might be. They'd make you very proud when you see our young people competing with their peers on any stage around the world. So all of that's exceptionally positive. So when we launched that plan, we said 100,000 by 2016. According to the Central Statistics Office, there have been about 104,000, 105,000 new jobs created now. That's due to the rising confidence in the business sector. So next year, I'd like to think that we can have more young people coming back to our country than leaving. And they are in contact, and they're on the digital connections that we have with them now. So by 2019, we aim to have more people working in our country than ever before. Think about that. And they will come back on a number of conditions. First of all, maybe they want to come home, but they've got to have a sustainable job that pays pretty well. And in that sense, we have to deal, of course, with the taxation system that we have at the moment. So we still have a long way to go. We're a small, open economy. Therefore, we've got to be nimble. We've got to be competitive to survive. They know that. That's why when you go to some of the centres around Ireland now, every major company in the world is here, because they appreciate that it's a magnetic attraction because of the cauldron of young people that are creating all of these things. Our competitiveness has been boosted by low interest rates, favourable currency exchange rates, the dollar, sterling. But these advantages are temporary, and we cannot rebuild a competitive economy on those factors alone. They're important elements. We need to keep down the costs for business. We need to encourage competition in key markets like the energy area. We have to continue to challenge the outdated structures that impose excessive costs on businesses. And that's why we will enact the Legal Services Bill by October. I listened to a member of the bench in the judiciary making a comment recently about a case which went to court involving a child, and the point being made was that the legal costs were of the order of €1 million, and the point being made by the learned judge was that half of that would have built a very suitable opportunity for that child to be looked after properly for its lifetime. So these are things that need to be looked at in a way that you give the best effect with the greatest consideration when things like that arise. See, commentators comment and they commentate. Opposition parties will throw up all kinds of wonderful schemes, but when they come up against organised resistance to the necessary change, they tend to run from that. Believe me, very shortly after I was elected as Taoiseach, I was informed that, we didn't have any place to run really, and that the situation was that the government might be asked to put the army around the banks because of the run that was happening, and you can imagine what would happen out of that. So you didn't have any place to run, and when you get into politics, it would always be nice to think that you're dealing with good news. Not so nice when you have to say that to make some really rough decisions here, freeze salaries, cut salaries, or whatever else, and all of these things that happened that we're now beginning to unwind in their own way. So just because people know that the country is moving in a better direction, we just can't sort of, pull the ladder away from that, because it is fragile. And believe me, it doesn't take much to, switch the engine into reverse. There's still too many people out of work in this country. Still too many. I like to think that we can have more schemes, more opportunities, more access to work. A lot of women, in particular, at home, who may well want to be in the workforce. The whole childcare issue, the costs of these, the report produced to the Minister the other day is one that will require very careful consideration by the government on the run into the October estimates. So we have to face as well the challenge of tax. If you say to somebody working in the States or in Britain or wherever else, come home, things are moving along fine, there's a job here for you. In each of these countries, you see, people on average earnings get to keep far more of their pay than they would in Ireland. So if you were earning €33,800 in this country, you're going to hit the 51% rate of tax. It's too high a rate and it kicks in too early. So how do you fix that? Well, you just can't say reduce it and give them more money, because you have to have balance it on the other side. So you have to have a stepped approach to this. That makes it more difficult for our sons and daughters to come home if they want to, because they'll say, why should I go back if I'm going to get schooled for tax here? It makes it harder to attract the people with the skills that are necessary. And we've got some really, really good people all over the world, and they've given their experience to us at the Global Irish Economic Forum, which we hold every couple of years. So we started this process back in the budget last year, for the budget for 2015. And this type of tax reform is essential to reducing the numbers of jobless households in the country, which even before the recession was twice the European average. Think about that. In the so-called days of the Celtic Tiger, when everything was hunky-dory and getting boomier by the day, yes, we had more jobless households in this country, more than double the number of jobless households than any other European country. So you have to have a reform that releases people from the previous government's welfare trap, a trap that impoverished them and their families, not only financially, but frequently in terms of ambition and hope and expectation. In terms of pay itself, following the recommendations of the Low Pay Commission, the government will introduce a package of measures in the October budget. Before, in social partnership, there wasn't any discussion at Oireachtas level. It was never discussed in the Dáil or by the committees. It was done away from there, behind doors, and recommendations were made. The Low Pay Commission, and I see Donald here, is one that has set out in a structured way what it means, or how you should apply this. And they've made a recommendation, and government will respond to that. So what we want to assure people is that in the budget, the work has always got to be seen as better than not working. In other words, show me the incentive to come off welfare and get into the world of work, and therefore you can contribute more to the economy in the country. And the more people we have working, the less taxes they pay, and therefore the greater the opportunities to deal with all of the socially vulnerable, disadvantaged in our society. Now, the universal social charge was introduced by the previous government as an emergency tax on working families, and has led to a situation where middle-income Irish workers face among the highest marginal tax rates in the individualised or the industrialised world. People on relatively modest incomes are now paying the marginal tax rate of 51%, which I pointed out to you. But following the income tax and the USC cuts of earlier this year, in October, we will cut the 7% rate of USC in the budget, and in doing so, we will bring down that marginal tax rate paid by people earning less than €70,000 to less than 50%, part of the steps along the way. So by steadily reducing the marginal tax rate, we will not only put more cash back in the people's pockets for them to decide what they want to do with it, but we'll make Ireland a more exciting and more attractive prospect for people to come here who want to invest in the country. It's a virtuous circle. The more jobs, less tax, more money in the pocket, more spending, more jobs. And you manage that competently, it's in everybody's interest. See, the tax issue is not the only one that's a barrier to working families. The GP card for under sixes, which parents tell me are making a big difference to them, was the first step to a free GP care for the children of all working families. This matter was dealt with during the week by the Minister for Health. Earlier this week, we published an ambitious plan to expand the early childhood education, to reduce childcare costs, with the first steps to make that happen to be taken in the budget coming up in October. So here in Glenties, we're at the crossroads. Joe, this is the last, I can tell you this. This is the last MacGill summer school before the election.
That's right.
See, he's a long-time operator and he knows that already. I can't go any further. And the choice at that crossroads would be clear. It's a choice on the one hand, one road leading to chaos and instability, with a government that was tested and failed, or those who'd like to be in government and who promise to do everything, though they haven't been tested at all. Or will the people decide to say, we've had enough of what was in the past, I'm following this route to the future, I know where the horizon is, and while there are challenges up ahead, that's where I want to be. I want to be there because the government will bring stability and coherence and good management so that the economy thrives, people can prosper, and we can build our society in the way that I know that we would like. And that's because there's a specific structure, strategy and plan in place. Now, since I became Taoiseach, I've met hundreds of thousands of people around the country. What struck me most in the first critical phase of our recovery is that, of course, we rear our children to have careers and to be successful. Who wouldn't want to do that? But equally, in an Irish sense, we rear them to be good people, to enjoy and to help create what for our country and our society is a good life. I was in Templemore yesterday at the passing out of 97 new Gardaí, young men and young women, taking on a very much changed job in a very much changed society with a very much changed nature of criminality. And they're well trained and they're professional and they're competent and they've taken on this task because they see this as their career. They make you very proud of the courage that they show, of the professionalism that they will display, and of the way that they will work with their communities all over the country now, and that will continue as the college remains open. So as any parent here can attest to, your children, of course, are the life and light of everybody's home. They leave, and their absence, in its own way, becomes a sort of a presence. They're still there, even though they might be away. So it's the same for the country. As somebody who happens to be the Taoiseach, but also happens to be a father, I believe that there can be no better life for our country than when our children are here. Give them that opportunity. And that's why I want 2016, the year of inclusive commemoration of 1916, when those leaders took the first fledgling steps towards Ireland achieving its economic and political independence. And I would like to think that 2016 for Irish families will be a year of family reunification, where they can start to come back from Melbourne or from San Francisco or Cleveland or New York or London or Birmingham or wherever. And that they come back to an economy where they have work and good work, to a society where they can build and live a good life, to a country reaching its potential, led by a stable government. And I say to the people from the hills of Glenties here, you're at the crossroads. You can, in due course, make your mind up. Keep your eyes on the fragile recovery that is underway. Remember what you lost, what you went without, the sacrifices that you made to achieve it, and think of the home and the Ireland that you want to create. Because there are consequences. You're going to have a referendum in Britain. In 5 years, is Britain going to be a member of the European Union or not? We want them to stay as a central member. If they decide otherwise, obviously there are implications in the relationship between Ireland and England, and between Ireland and Northern Ireland, 26 counties. And this requires that the government, to be elected by the people, will want to understand and be able to deal with all of these issues. There are the major challenges of immigration from many countries, the issues surrounding the tinderbox of the Middle East, other issues that may arise in a world sense of which we're not yet aware. So you want a government in a time of change globally that is solid, that is competent, that has experience and that has been tested in the most stressful economic period in our nation's history. And that's why a stable government in a recovering Ireland is my verdict of where the people should decide to put their support. And that's an Ireland where you and your children and their children can have that good life, a fulfilling, hopeful and prosperous future. And the crossroads, and as the crossroads, is the choice for you, and you represent Ireland. I believe that the people will choose the road of recovery, the road of stability, the road of prosperity, the road of opportunity, and the road of building a society. When I was elected first, I said I'd like to demonstrate that good politics can bring about a situation where we're recognised as being the best small country in the world in which to do business. We've come a long way in that sense. To be the best country in which to rear a family, we have improvements to make. And obviously, to be the best country in which to grow old with a sense of dignity and respect. When I see some of the incidents and issues being uncovered by unannounced inspections by HICWA, that's not the kind of Ireland that we want to see in the future. And that's why an economy that's strong, well managed, will provide the resources to be able to deal with all of those kinds of unfortunate cases that are necessarily brought to our attention. So, in Glenties, Joe, 2015, you heard it from me. They're at the crossroads. They're going to make their mark. It's the people's choice. Elections are great. They're a long way off. The people have to make their choice. So think about it. Always good to prepare for the examination well in advance. Thanks very much. Glad to be here.